Big news from the FDA over the weekend.
It just proposed new blood donation guidelines. Local 12's Kristen Cornett explains how it could lead to more eligible donors. Kristen.
Good morning. Yeah, some big news. We haven't heard this one in a few years from the FDA. You know, right now there's a time deferral process policy in place that requires queer men to be abstinent for 3 months before they could potentially be eligible as a blood donor. Well, these new guidelines just proposed over the weekend are something that advocates have been pushing for that would change that, among other things. So these are draft guidelines, so nothing official yet. And in a nutshell, it recommends moving to a new process nationally, of course, that's based on individual risk assessment to reduce the risk of HIV transfusion transmissions instead of that time deferral policy I mentioned earlier. So that means this current donor history questionnaire would change, adding 2 new questions. It would include questions about sexual history, like the number of sexual partners, but that would be asked to everyone, not just men who have sex with men, as it was previously and is right now. The more inclusive language and the potential to find more eligible donors is something advocates within Hawksworth Blood Center have really been pushing for.
I think that it's a more fair system that will be implemented. I think that assessing each individual donor for their risk makes sense. I really disliked the idea of whole classes of people being discouraged from donating or not allowed to donate based on sexual preference.
So these proposed guidelines, too, would remove all gendered language from these current guidelines, which is something advocates were excited about, too. And one of them is a local UC student. He's a senior studying nursing and actually founded an organization advocating for these changes in particular, among other things. We'll hear from his reaction to these news coming up here in about 30 minutes. Back to you.
All right, Kristen, a public comment period is now in place for the next 60 days. And once plans are finalized and approved, it could take at least 6 to 9 months before we see any new policies in place.